if you're doing anything inappropriate, you need to back off too, right? So condos and apartments have some unique challenges because of the way you guys are packed in there, and it does add to the stress, right? But even though it's a close quarter living situation, you're going to follow this procedure that I'm laying out right now, and you should see results. This is the best way to handle the situation, okay? Let's talk about situations with bad neighbors, bully neighbors, that are unwinnable, okay? Let's talk about that. Gangs. Do you live in a gang-infested neighborhood? Are the gang members picking on you, harassing you, attacking you? Are they your bully? If so, you should move. Move. Because you don't have a bully problem, you have 100 bullies as your problem. If you were to call the police on one bully, they're all going to attack you the next day. Okay? I don't know anyone who can win. Okay, I used to live in Detroit, right? So when I remember this one house that I bought, okay, it was like $15,000, okay? And then I'm telling myself in my mind like this, I'm saying, I could be safe here, I could be safe here, I could be safe here. It kept saying, my subconscious, yeah, I could, because I'm an ex-con, and you know, I know how to defend myself. But what about my wife? Or what about my children? Or what about my pet dog? Are they safe? No. If you were actually in a safe neighborhood, your subconscious wouldn't be saying, I feel safe, I could be safe here. That's not safe, okay? So in Detroit, there are some streets, right? When you're driving in your car down the street, and the gang members are standing in the middle of the street. Do not honk your horn at them. Do not ask them to let you go through. This is an open challenge. It's their street. They don't know you. And you're not getting through. So you just stop and you turn around and you go the way you came. Because they definitely have guns. They have obviously claimed this street as their own property. So unless you want to have a shootout with them and be the victim of a crime, the only logical thing you can do is turn around. These are neighborhoods, and you'll see some similar neighborhoods in very bad areas like Chicago. Some parts of the country, the police won't go in there, okay? It's that bad, okay? So there are parts of Detroit that the police won't go in there. So what are you doing in there if the police won't go in there? This is not a bully situation. This is, you could get killed there, okay? Even when you go to a Coney Island, that's like a hot dog stand in Detroit, where they have a door with a buzzer lock, and so no one can just come in. So when you want a hot dog, you come and they look at you to see if you had caused problems in there before, and they buzz you in, right? I remember one time I'm in the restaurant, okay, and I'm eating with my girlfriend, and then this homeless guy or this crazy drug guy is at my window asking for money, and I'm ignoring him. He says, all right, when you come out. I mean, I'm just trying to have a breakfast, man. And then already he can't come in because he's already harassed previous tenants, previous patrons, so they won't let him in. But how does it feel to leave and now you have to deal with this fool, right? So you have a neighborhood problem. You don't have a bully problem. The gangs own that area, and if the police aren't willing to defend a citizen, then that is the gang's neighborhood. The same as if you lived in Mexico, right? The gangs, you can't call the police on the gangs in Mexico, okay? Or in El Salvador, because the police are afraid of the gangs. So my advice, if a gang is your problem, move. You are not safe where you live. Move out of the gang-infested area. Move. And I know finance is a problem, but you know what? Come on, dude. You're not safe there. If you're poor, here's a news flash for you. You can be poor anywhere. You don't have to be poor in a ghetto or a barrio or a slum. You can be poor in Beverly Hills. You could be poor, in West Bloomfield. You can be poor. You don't have to be poor. Just because you are poor don't mean you have to live in a slum. Okay? Get out of there. Make that your number one goal, because you don't have a bully problem. The gang has bullied its way into the dominant form of government in that town is the gang. Okay? So that my advice is to move. Okay? Crack houses. If you live next to a crack house, okay, again, it would be wise to know, is this a salvageable thing or not? And I guess you would know by calling the police, because if the police come to a crack house and then remove everyone, problem solved. It's a crack house, and make arrests and get them out of that crack house. If you call the police and they don't come, or they don't succeed, like, okay, in Flint, right, you call the police and there are certain laws that prevent them from going further. So if the bad neighbor doesn't answer the door, well, the complaint's not serious enough for the cops to kick the door down. So they think that their job's done and they just leave. Well, he didn't answer, he must not be home. He's home. He just knows the rules of engagement with cops, and he didn't answer the door. So if that's a crack house, and selling drugs and smoking dope in there, and it and they're the bully, because you're asking them, hey, please don't park in my driveway, and they do. Hey, please, no more cars coming at 2 a.m., and they do. Hey, and they are on drugs, they're going to be violent, and they have guns, right? So you're concerned. My advice again would be, hey, you should probably move. Why are you living next to a crack house? Why? That you could be poor anywhere. I would recommend that you move. If you're not going to move, find out if the police are willing to do anything. Before you call them, you could feel this out, okay? Are you in Flint, or are you in a better neighborhood? Because some police love to go make arrests at crack house. Other police are like, I'm not going in there, okay? So you have to find out how bad the situation is. But my advice in general is, if that's your neighbor, you picked a bad place to live and you should move. Okay? Okay, neighbors who shoot guns, right? That's a big issue, right? I have a neighbor, because I live out in the country, so this neighbor shoots off things that sound like a military artillery range. It sounds like a cannon. I don't know, because he's a total bunker kind of guy. You can't even see his house. He put a giant mound of dirt all around his house, so you can't even see his house. Okay, it's crazy. And so he's firing these high caliber weapons, right? And man, if that was my bully, what would you do, right? First thing I do is a background check. has this guy been in trouble for shooting or for harassment with his neighbors or violating gun laws? Or we want to know who he is. Okay, what does he do? What does he do for work? What does he do? We want to know, is he dangerous? Is he just he already seems dangerous because of all the guns he has. So you should at least know who you're dealing with, right? But that would be a difficult neighbor, right? So if you had a conflict with that guy who has artillery up the wazoo, you should probably move. I would say move. I don't know how that could go well. Do your background check. And if you don't see any vulnerability, because here's why. He may be unstable. The fact that he has a bunker made out of dirt, right? Hills around his house, and that he's firing guns all the time. Each bullet he fires costs a minimum $1, okay? Depending on the caliber, right? So when he's firing off 2,000, he's got that kind of money to fire off 2,000 rounds? I don't have $2,000 to shoot off in a gun. That's a very expensive firing range. He's telling me a lot by his, and to have those powerful guns that they're so powerful, I don't even know what type of gun. And I'm pretty good with guns. Those guns are like military weapons, like anti-tank type of, like, wow, super sonic boom loud, okay? But anyway, my advice, if that was your conflict, that guy, you got to do the same pattern. You're going to do a background check on your neighbor, see who he is, how dangerous is he. If you see a vulnerability, you may decide to exploit that to get him to back up, right? Then the same scenario, arbitration. Arbitration is where you get that same private investigator who did the background check, and you say, hey, I want to pay you to go up to my neighbor and offer him a ceasefire, in both literal and figurative. A ceasefire. Let's have a truce where I respect you and you respect me. That's all we're asking for, okay? That the private investigator is a former police officer, and you're paying him $100 to go up there and say, hey, I've been asked to relay a message to you. Your neighbor Alex, he wants a ceasefire, a truce on all hostilities. He wants to have a discussion with you, or we want to come to an agreement where you respect him and he respects you. That's how you're going to word that. Because you asking for, hey, be quiet or don't park here, start with this. We're just asking that you respect him and he respect you. See, that sounds reasonable, right? And then that's part of respect, is respecting my property, respecting my right to sleep at night, okay? That comes with the term of respect, okay? So, that's how you would deal with a gun nut neighbor, okay? Is if you can, move. That would, if it's within your ability, because he could be a psycho. If you cannot, you're going to do a background check on him, scanning the report for vulnerabilities, previous conflicts with the law, criminal record, was he dishonorably discharged from the military, things like that. What is his story? How dangerous is he? Then mediation. That same private investigator is going to approach the neighbor and say, hey, what would it take? Would you be open to the idea of each person respecting the other if we stop all hostilities, right? So here's what that does. It shows that you are trying to squash the problem, and he's stubbornly not. If he says no, tell Alex no. I hate him. I don't like him. I promise nothing. I don't respect him. Ooh, okay, but now I have proof that I hired someone to do a mediation, and he said, no way, I'm not open to any mediation or minimizing this problem. So that helps you. You have evidence now that he's hostile, right? Okay, and okay, so when you live in a downtown area or a place like, okay, if you go to the beaches in Southern California, you see what we call parking wars. Parking wars is this: a business has 4 parking spaces, right? Well, customer wants to go to this business and he parks in this other parking. Well, now his customers can, everyone's fighting for a parking space. And if I visit my friend and, well, he's already parked in his own spot, where do I park? And even if there's coin operated parking meters, sometimes they're all full. There's you know, it's crazy. So there is a lot of bad neighbor stuff for parking. When I owned my condo in California, I had to put a big sign in my parking space. Hey, if you park here, I promise I will tow you, right? And I did have to keep that promise. But it was not easy, because sometimes you're towing a neighbor or the brother of the neighbor. It doesn't matter. They would tow me if I parked in their space. And bottom line is, mine's a gated community. How did you even get in this gate and then have the nerve to park in my spot and ignore my sign that says I will tow you? You hit the trifecta. You violated all 3 things. I'm going to have to tow you, right? So, believe it or not, in that scenario, in that condo, bullies were so bad that my parking space had a different number than my condo space. Because if I towed someone, they might bully and get revenge. They might find my home and bang on the door and be angry. So the numbers were different. So you couldn't even know, but you were in someone's spot and you didn't belong there, and now you're towed, right? So parking wars, okay? Should you tow their car or not? That's a tough one. It depends on the situation. Sometimes some people will give one warning, right? And they'll put a note on the car and say, look, I wrote down your license plate number. If you park in the spot again, I promise I'll tow you. And usually that's the end of it. But if I had to park on the street so that some bully parked in my spot for the night, no, bully, I'm calling the tow truck, and you're gonna go pick up your car in the tow truck, right? I mean, this is my spot. You can't use it without permission. You didn't get permission, so you saw a sign. There was a gate, and somehow you defeated the gate. You followed someone else in. You think you're gonna park it? No, I gotta tow you. So that's how I feel about it. But I did it anonymously, right? So what if you're a small business, or your home is right in front of the parking spot and you're battling for the, now they know, oh, this guy is the one who towed me. So there are pros and cons to fighting in the parking wars. My advice, you know, it's hard. It's hard to give advice because everyone is different. Every situation's different. But you'll see, how are your neighbors protecting their parking spaces? That's how you should do it. Okay? So, yes. Okay. Vicious dogs. Okay? When I had a rental property in Detroit, right? The guy was behind on his payments, his rent payments. So I go there to collect, and as soon as I knock on the door, I hear two enormous pit bulls in there. And I didn't give him permission to live with these pit bulls, but it's like, oh, those dogs will rip you up if you go in there. I mean, Detroit, you kind of almost have to have a pit bull because when you leave your home, there's some shady people there, dangerous people, and the pit bull is more like a security guard, right? So the question becomes, when does a vicious dog is not a security but an aggressive force? So does that aggressive dog ever go into your yard and try to attack your cat or your dog or your child? So these are serious concerns. In the town I'm currently living in, they only have enough room in the animal shelter for 100 stray dogs, right? 100 unwanted dogs. Well, there's like 35,000 dogs in this major city. So when people call, they go, sorry, we're full. So that means there's a lot of vicious dogs running around. But animal control is one option, okay? But I would also do a background check. Has this person had problems with animal control before? Does this person have a criminal record? There's a famous story in California. This guy paroled from prison, and he had an idea of a business. He's going to breed the most aggressive dogs, right, possible. So he bred, a pit bull with a mastiff, right, to make this big mean, and he trained him to be super mean, right, because that he's selling aggressive security protection dog, right? Well, he lived in an apartment, right? So one day in the hallway, he's bringing his dogs outside, and then the neighbor, a small woman, opens her door, and the two dogs attacked and killed her, right? So bully? Oh yeah, bully behavior, right? So what is the solution here? First of all, get a background check. Also, why are you living next to someone with these violent dogs? If moving is an option, I mean, it's a terrible inconvenience to move, but sometimes it's the only, I mean, usually if you can move away from a vicious dog, I mean, if you're not safe, okay, that was not a safe situation, you should move, okay? But follow my suggestions in order. First, do a background check. If you would have done a background check, if that lady was having a problem about this, she was afraid of those dogs, she should have done a background check. The background check would have shown that he just got out of prison. He's on parole. She'd just pick up the phone and say, hey, parole officer, yeah, this guy over here, and you know his name, he's got these incredibly dangerous dogs, and I feel threatened, and I want you to do something about it. They'd have picked him up, sent him back to prison, done. Problem solved. But you see, without that report, no conflict should go down without you having a full, detailed report of your adversary, okay? Because that's the first step, is knowing who am I having beef with, okay? Is this a super dangerous person or a harmless nobody, right? So, yes, that's why we do it in order. First, we're going to do a background check to see for any vulnerabilities in the bully's armor. Does he have any weaknesses show up? Okay? Hey, one time I was doing a crime, right? And guess what? This hero guy tried to stop me. He's tried to physically stop me from doing the crime. Well, I beat him up, and as I'm beating him up, I noticed he has a colostomy bag. Okay? He has a poop bag on the side of his, and I'm thinking, why did